I would like to take a minute to thank all of our sponsors, our platinum sponsors, Schneider Electric and Trane Technologies, gold sponsor, Carrier, and silver sponsor, ABB India and Tabreed. Thank you so much for your commitment and your support. We will now move on to our next session for the day. I hope you've enjoyed the networking break. We're about to dive into a crucial topic with our first session, Unlocking the Vault, moving from funding to financing energy efficiency. This session will dive into the intricate landscape of energy efficiency financing, aiming to bridge the gap between ambitious goal targets and practical funding solutions. We will explore a wide spectrum of mechanisms, from regulatory frameworks and tax incentives to innovative financial instruments like green bonds and carbon credit trading schemes. Please join me in welcoming our esteemed set of panelists for this session. Please take the stage as I call your name. Mr. Ashish Rao Ghorpade, Senior Expert, Low Carbon Cities, AEEE. Mr. Hari Kumar Ramdas, Director, Energy Management Center, Kerala. Ms. Manisha Mukherjee, Executive Director, Sustainability and Climate Solutions. Mr. Samrat Ray, South Asia Regional Department, Energy, Asian Development Bank, ADB. And Ms. Shruti Narayan, Regional Director, South and West Asia, C40. Thank you so much. We're looking forward to a great session.
Thank you. And we get started. I think we started on a very good note in the morning. All of the previous speakers gave us all of the background and the context of why we are having this session, why we are discussing the need for financing for energy efficiency and decarbonization going forward. I think going ahead, I wanted to just mention that energy efficiency projects by their nature, if they're done right, have a clear and attractive return on investment. But still, in terms of uptake and implementation, we know that energy efficiency needs attention. And of course, this has to do with the important role that a beneficiary or a consumer has, but also governance structures and the usual preference that we have for least cost solutions in implementation. And of course, then implementation at the subnational level needs to prioritize energy efficiency, and we need to look beyond funding, going ahead and looking at financing options for the same. And so appropriate financing will not only provide us with implementation benefits, but it will also help us transform the market and support innovation, and additionally provide co-benefits. We heard all of this in our earlier sessions. So our session is called Unlocking the Vault, but we are mainly going to be talking about how this is being done right now and what are the ways forward in terms of financing. And we have in today's panel with us representatives from a state government entity who's directly involved in the energy conservation aspects. From EMC, Dr. Hari Kumar. We have well-known MDB, Asian Development Bank, Mr. Samrat Ray. We have also an international not-for-profit cities association, C40 Cities. We have Shruti Narayan with us. And then development and management consulting firm, Dr. Manisha Mukherjee. So we have a very interesting mix of panelists with us. It'll be great to hear insights from all of you in terms of how this is being done, how we're looking at financing and implementation on ground. The way I'm hoping we go ahead with this session is I'm going to have 2 to 3 questions from all of you, each of you. Begin with 2 questions each panelist, and maybe stop for any questions we have from the audience here, and then go ahead with another set of questions to each of you going forward. I hope that's the way we can take it ahead. So I think firstly we would like to hear from Dr. Hari Kumar. Sir, Kerala is probably one of the first states that's got the State Energy Conservation Fund going. And if you can tell us a little bit about how this fund is institutionally set up and operated, that would be useful for us. Also, I think when it was initially set up, we had something like 4 crores coming from the national government, conditional of course. But from that amount, where is it that we are right now and how are we operating it? If you could tell us a little bit about this, that'd be useful for us.
Okay. See, our Kerala State Energy Conservation Fund rules was announced in March 2010 with a government order. And we got 4 crores, as rightly pointed out, from Bureau of Energy Efficiency. I took charge as the Director of Energy Management Center in 2020, May. So when I looked for this, what we have done with this fund, it is supposed to be a revolving fund. That is the criteria of BEE. I think the fund was kept this 4 crore and we got 2 crores from the government of Kerala. Though it's a matching contribution, we got 2 crores as the first installment. The fund was kept and for 10 years we were revolving around the fund, not knowing how to make the fund revolve. So I thought, okay, let us do something. So in 2020, during the COVID phase, after I think 2021, we devised a program, a simple, very humble attempt that we, at that time, some interest also we got. So we put it in the fixed deposit, and with the interest we did some socially relevant energy efficiency program. For example, we did about 1 crore we spent for the largest medical college hospital, converting their inefficient gadgets to energy efficient gadgets and all. Then we devised a scheme where we will be giving a soft loan with 2% interest rate to public sector and cooperative units. Cooperative sector. We have, the Kerala has a robust cooperative sector with a lot of hospitals under the cooperative sector. So 2% interest rate to the public sector and cooperative sector and 4% interest rate to the private sector. So that program we launched. And the guarantee we took is the bank guarantee, because we have to, and they have to, it is for 3 years. And they have to repay it within the 3 years every month. See, we started this program we did one project we funded was for the state PSU, Travancore Titanium Products, for a low pressure steam turbine generator against instead of their PRV. Then I think there we put about 1.7 crores for that. And it is implemented and we are getting back the money. And the next project we funded was for Hindustan Organic Chemicals Limited. That is a central PSU. That is for replacing an energy efficient air compressor. So both state PSU and central PSU, that also is implemented and funded. That is about 3 crores. So 3 plus 1.7, 4.7 crores. In the meantime, we could get another 2 crores from the government of Kerala also. So the total fund is now 8 crore, about 4.7 crore we have spent. And another project which we have got is from the only one chlor-alkali unit in the state, Travancore Cochin Chemicals, for their membrane replacement. So that will be, that process is going on, and within a month or so we will be giving them 3 crores for that. But there are little bit challenges also, and some lessons also we learned from this scheme. So based on that, we are in the process of coming out with another product also in the Energy Conservation Fund. And we have a committee chaired by the Additional Chief Secretary, Government of Kerala, and we have about 6-7 members, including the finance industry, and even we have a member from the industry association, 2 industry associations into this committee also. So this is how we are working.
I think this is very interesting, and probably later in the session I'd like to also ask, have you share a bit with other states in terms of how such a fund can be managed effectively. But I wanted to also understand, I think for the audience it'll be interesting to know, when you are deploying the funding, what is the strategy that you follow? Do you use it on the basis of the size of the project, risk associated, return on investment, or just energy savings? How is it that your center decides projects that you're going to be funding?
In fact, to be frank, we wanted to give this fund to the MSME sector, micro, small and medium enterprises. But unfortunately, the fund is taken by the large industries. Because they have the close connection we have, because they are all designated consumers which comes under PAT scheme, and they have their own energy manager, so they keep good contact with us and they apply for this particular scheme. So MSME sector, recently we got one application for about 10 lakhs small projects. So small projects means multiple projects we can do. That is our priority, but unfortunately we are doing it in, so far we have done it in large scale industries. And we are, the criteria is very simple. We have a technical committee chaired by the senior director, former senior director of National Productivity Council. And we have some team members, including a finance member. So we go with the reduction in specific energy consumption. Because in the chloralkali, the membrane replacement, that is a project. So it has a productivity improvement more than energy efficiency. So the specific energy consumption reduction is the one criteria and then no over invoicing. So no over invoicing, because if they want 1 crore and they put the project for 2 crore, because it's a very soft loan, no? We are giving for 2% interest rate. So we have a finance member also, committee member also. So these are the 2 criteria we see for giving the fund. And it is very simple only. And we have an MOU, then a bank guarantee.
So 2%, you're giving loans at 2%. Would there be a long line of applications that you have to sieve through? Because that's very attractive.
We thought so. Even some few years back, through the Kerala Financial Corporation, every state has got their own state financial corporation. Through the state Kerala Financial Corporation, we introduced another soft loan at a 6% interest rate. But no takers. Because I don't know whether it is because our fault that we are not going to the community and the industry associations. When we convene certain meetings, physical meetings, unfortunately the decision makers do not come. They mark the letter down the grain, and some assistant engineer come, they hear our scheme, they go back to the decision maker. Then this is a non-conventional scheme, no? This is not operated in anywhere in the country, I think. So if that fellow tells his chief executive that there is a scheme like this, then they feel that there is something wrong with our scheme. So maybe because some non-conventional thing, it is very difficult to convince the people very fast. We could not, there is a little bit of communication gap, but that we have, and that is one. Second thing, we also didn't want to give it a much larger publicity, because our kitty was very small. We got only 8 crore with us. So, and already now it is about 7.5 crore we have committed, only 50 lakhs is remaining. But we have another scheme, interest subvention scheme, that we are thinking of it. That for that we have certain allocated money also. So once the next energy conservation fund committee will put across that scheme, because this bank guarantee people are not able to give some MSMEs, because their money get locked there. They would get that the interest, bank guarantee, their money get locked. So the interest subvention scheme we are trying to come out with the next. Maybe I will give the details later.
I'll ask you again about it, because we want to be knowing more about how you're thinking of extending your activity in future. But maybe I'll ask questions from some of the other panelists right now. I'd like to not go in a row and probably reach out to Shruti to ask a question. Shruti, we all know C40, we know you're a cities association, you work with city governments, and part of your work you're developing city climate action plans and helping them think through how in future they need to plan for climate as well as decarbonization and develop projects and implement them. But besides telling them what they need to do and the kind of projects that they need to focus on, does C40 also help with financing? I know you have the C40 Climate Finance Facility that's existing, but tell us a little bit about what does it do, how does it operate, do you have a size of projects that you focus on, and are there themes that you prioritize? Is energy efficiency part of that?
Great, thank you. So, just kind of building up on what you said, as a organization that primarily works with cities, we believe that the way to drive action is to have data-driven, evidence-based action plans. And using those, we then, we kind of help the city prioritize, right? Because, if you would understand that any city that's tackling climate action will have so many, priorities, often competing. So one of the things that we do is help cities prioritize, using the metrics of greenhouse gas emissions, funding needed, where can that funding come from? Is it from their own books or, external funding or even public-private partnerships? So C40 is obviously not directly a financing organization, but as our mandate of working closely with cities, and as you mentioned, Ashish, we have this facility that is funded by the German government, the British government, which is called the Cities Finance Facility, which primarily provides cities the opportunity to do project preparation. And we feel one of the biggest challenges that cities face, or other stakeholders as well, is that you often have funding available. So the problem is not the availability of funding, but it is the access to that funding or financing. So how do you, in a mechanism that's market-based, right? Because you also don't want to have pilot projects that are sort of continuously getting funded. So creating those, looking at a framework of creating markets, we have developed this facility, which cities can apply to. And actually, we have our phase 4 that's open right now. And we have cities that are submitting applications all over the world, mostly from Global South. And we then support the cities on preparing those projects. So we look at the techno-commercial feasibility, we look at the impact of the projects, the risks, and all of the other aspects of, structuring the project. And we work very closely with the city in building capacity, because it's also important that, and I'm sure, my colleagues from ADB will talk about that, but prior experience, having been at IFC, is that you can, invest in projects, but then the operations also does not, you have to also empower the organizations to operate it in a certain way so that what you're committing as a business case from a return on investment is actually captured through the life cycle of the project. And that requires capacity building of the team. And I'll just cite one example. We, in our last phase, worked with Mumbai, BEST, on looking at deployment of renewable energy on their depots. Mumbai and BEST has a very ambitious goal of, I think, 10,000 buses, electric buses to be on ground. And the question was, where will this energy come from? So we actually really worked closely with the city to develop this project that is now ready for financing.
Okay. And just following up on that, so when a project gets ready for financing, how does it go ahead from there? And I think we know how local governments work, making sure that the team at the government side is invested and involved. How does C40 do this? How do you make sure that they are part of the conversation going forward as the financing is made available and as those conversations, open up? Could you tell us a bit about
So I think a bit on the model of the way we work, right? So we are a city-led organization, right? So even when we do the climate action plans or any of these projects, they're on behalf of the city. So we don't work with the city till the city is taking complete ownership of this project, right? And at any point when we feel like there is a lack of ownership, or we just pull out, because we cannot do this project. What we don't want to do is an academic project, right? It shouldn't be a report. So this is a real, like the CFF is a very serious sort of project preparation facility. It's a bit of a long process. I mean, we're also exploring catalytic funds where we can do quick project preparation of smaller projects. The way we work post. So when the project gets prepared, we then, through the process, do like a matchmaking of the city. We bring in financiers. We've been in touch with, for example, for this particular project with ADB, with IFC, with KfW. We bring them on the table to look at that, but like BMC doesn't need money, and everybody knows it's one of the richest ULB in India, so they can finance this project on their own. But with other cities, we do this exercise. We bring in, because it's also important to understand that project preparation has different facets, right? Like, so we need to understand what is a financier looking for, and ensuring that those components are built in to the project structuring so that it becomes a real project. Now, often, and I'm sure my colleagues will talk about it, the ticket size becomes a challenge, because certain large MDBs do not provide, financing for a certain ticket size, et cetera, et cetera. So I think those are things that also keep the project from getting financing, right? So then we explore other mechanisms of bringing private sector on board, et cetera.
Great. I think this is useful as a first round, and for everybody in the audience, the fourth phase of C40 Cities Finance Facility is going on. It's open, so if you're working with cities and you're looking at projects, you should talk to Shruti a little bit more on this. But moving ahead, I think I'd like to invite Mr. Samrat Ray to tell us a little bit about ADB, and how do you see energy efficiency in your investment projects? Is it a specific category in your portfolio of projects? Would you see this being built into large projects in general, especially going forward? We're looking at decarbonization, we're looking at clean development. How is this being done? If you could give us an overview, we could take it from there.
Thank you, Ashish. I think, you're the I was looking at this session's name and moving from funding to financing. And I think that's when I realized that, ADB treats energy efficiency as funding. I mean, and that's probably the reason, could be a reason why, other than one active project, which is with ESL, which has some components of energy efficiency built into it. We have around 8 active loans with over almost like 2.5–3 billion on the energy now. And none of them have any mention of energy efficiency, other than this only ESL loan, which is roughly 200 million. So I think the challenge which I see is the word funding, because that's the word which gets used extensively within ADB, that we are funding and we are not really financing. So yeah, so that's in a nutshell what ADB is doing in energy efficiency. But I think the point is also that we are a development bank, and the development bank also operates within a country framework. So it's not like that I would have want to do something, but that doesn't mean that that's the country framework. So I think the country framework till now, and it continues to be that you focus on large infrastructure projects. So if energy efficiency is not getting that attention, it's not because that we do not have it in our mind, but it is just that we are aligned to the country framework, which talks about large infrastructure projects. So we continue to do that. I think, but increasingly that's going to change, because when I now go back to the ADB board for approval of our projects, increasingly we are asked is that in a country like India, where infrastructure, the banking system, the institutions are reasonably strong, the implementing agencies, the banks, the government policy is reasonably strong, why do you want to continue to do infrastructure projects? Other than the ones which are absolutely necessary. So that's a very fundamental shift which is happening within ADB in terms of thinking. So I think ADB was the partner MDB for the G20 Energy Transition Group. And energy efficiency was one of the themes. And I know there was a lot written on that, but I do not know to what extent action has been taken. But for an institution like ADB or the likes of ADB, I mean, you can take it World Bank or AIIB for a matter of that. What fundamentally we need to understand is energy efficiency, as ma'am mentioned, that the ticket size could be small at a project level. So for someone like us, it is very difficult to do it at a project level, which basically means that you need to have an institution, which is an intermediary, or you have a program, which then brings back to my original thing about funding, which basically is that if you look at the, I'm responsible for administering on ADB's behalf the ESL $200 million loan. And this is the second loan to ESL. So if you look at the first loan to ESL, the first loan was the one which funded. I mean, I'm not using the word financing because it was funded. So it was funded by ADB and the World Banks and AFDs. I mean, there were a lot of them. It's not just us. But it was funded at a programmatic level. So, you're looking at energy efficiency LEDs. But then it's not like, I'm doing that LED program for Bihar, or we did it at ESL, the government program was at a national level, and ADB's contributions or the other MDB's contributions was to the program, and leave it to the government and its institution to deliver. So that's the way that was done. Even the e-mobility, because I'm talking, this is the first loan of ADB to ESL was sometime like 10 years back. So I think 14, 15, I think. The second loan was approved sometime in 2019, which is still ongoing. So these were all done at a programmatic level. They were not done at a project level. They were all done at a programmatic level. So I think what is important to understand and stress that for institutions like us or these, it has to be done at a programmatic level. So either you do it at a program, or you find out an intermediary. Now, the intermediary could be an institution like ESL, which runs programs on behalf of the government, or it could be even a financial intermediary, like ADB has intermediary loans with State Bank of India, NABARD, which then implements the PM Surya Ghar program. So something like that. So I think going forward, we have deep interest in decarbonization and energy efficiency, and I understand that energy efficiency is one of the pillars under decarbonization. So, there is a lot of news about this green steel mission, which may come up. So there's some actions which have been taken. We are in discussions with the government, and we have shown our interest to fund the mission at a program level. So hopefully whenever it comes, and if there is an inclination from the government to do that, we will do that. We are also looking at, trying to, create a market space out of it, and how we want to do it. So, and I think we had some conversations with AEEE on cold chains. So in fact, we did almost a year-round study in the state of West Bengal to understand what is the impact of energy efficiency in cold chains. So now we are, trying to discuss that report at NCCD and at the government of West Bengal's Agriculture Department, and then try to see if we can create a development program. Because one thing is very clear to us, that we cannot, energy efficiency is something which has to be done by the private sector, because it's, at the end of the day, it's consumers who need to do it. I cannot force or make the consumer to do energy efficiency till he understands or he is incentivized sufficiently to do it. Our involvement is in that process of incentivization. So I think we will continue to do that, and I'm hopeful that maybe this year or probably next year we should come out with something on energy efficiency. Yeah.
Oh, that's good to know, and that's encouraging. I still want you to probably share a little bit about the national program with EESL in terms of how programmatically it was designed, because I think it involved a lot of aspects of creating awareness, getting applicants to join in, get a sense of market players who could be part of this. How is it that this was done? I think it's been a successful set of initiatives under that engagement. But if you could tell us a little bit more, that might be very useful for us.
So I wouldn't go to the first loan on LEDs because it was almost long time, and I mean I wouldn't try to comment on that. But I think I can comment on the current loan. The current loan to ESL is to look at smart metering and distributed energy generation, and also look at electric mobility, but not the electric mobilities in terms of buses and two-wheelers. I mean, it primarily focuses on two-wheelers, not the cars or the charging and all that. So if you look at within the loan, smart metering, again, the way the program is designed, it talks about a target. Now, under the loan, I mean, it will be very minuscule in terms of the requirement of the country, but it talks about deploying roughly 3 to 4 million smart meters across states. Now, what we are trying to leverage here is ESL's ability to use bulk procurement as a means to bring down cost, and then design a reasonable OpEx-based contract. So again, it is not specific to projects. It's not like state X or a distribution company X has a requirement. I go to that distribution company and pick up a $20 million, $30 million loan. No, it is at that level, and it's up to the ESL to do all that. So that's how that program is designed. Now, if you look at electric mobility, I mean, electric mobility under the loan is primarily grant funded. It is through a grant which is funded by Jeff. Now, that talks about micro mobility. So basically, since sir is here, I think CSL, the ESL subsidiary, they are trying to look at cargo bicycles for women entrepreneurship. Bringing in mobility to the. I mean, we have a lot of incentives for two-wheelers, three-wheelers, four-wheelers, and cars, but I don't know what extent micro-mobility. What I'm given to understand is micro-mobility at that level of women and all that is really not. I mean, I don't think there's an incentive even there. Even if you buy a cargo bicycle, I don't know if there's an incentive. I mean, you used to have incentives for buying scooters, but I don't know if someone wants to buy a electric bicycle, does he or she get an incentive? So I think that's something which we are trying to do with the ultimate hope that this creates sufficient evidence that this is something which can be created on a national program. So I think that's the main drive which we have, and hopefully in future when we design programs, we will probably use the word financing and not funding these programs.
Yes, we'll be looking forward to that, and hopefully more engagements. But moving ahead, I think I want to share and raise some questions with Dr. Manisha Mukherjee. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about Nangya Anderson India Private Limited and your engagements in climate finance, decarbonization space, and its intersections maybe with energy efficiency. And you could probably take an example to tell us how you've been doing this. How do you see this as emerging space for yourself?
Thanks. In fact, when Samrat was mentioning that we'll be coming from funding to financing, I was also thinking that what is the difference between funding and financing and how to bridge that gap. I'll come to that point later on. So Nangya Group is 42-year-old group, and our energy and climate change practice is 5-year-old. We have a strong team and covers almost all area in energy ecosystem and climate change ecosystem. And we also internally have a strong government team, so we have sector-wise team like infrastructure, transportation, so all the other teams which has intersection with the climate and energy. Now we are now working in 10 different countries other than India, and are present in this. India we have 9 offices, and we are about 1,400 people in India. So as an organization level. So the type of projects that we are doing are, I would say, I'm coming from the climate change perspective. So mainly we do decarbonization projects where not only we work with the hard-to-abate sector, but also with the MSME. So where there is a lot of scope for energy efficiency, and unfortunately, although we have started recognizing energy efficiency as one of the pillar in decarbonization, but in reality, you will see that energy efficiency is the most underrated component in the decarbonization. So when people think about decarbonization strategy, energy efficiency is rather the most low-hanging fruit which is available but often get neglected, especially in the scheme of big industries. And people will think about technology transfer but not to start with energy efficiency. So we do work in that space. We work a lot with different MSME companies. Actually, we do a lot of funded projects. So like different funding agencies like ADB, World Bank, MCC and all. And we, in the space of climate financing, we also help clients, here government, to develop projects, identify projects and develop projects which can go for funding or financing in the climate financing way. So that some of the projects are also from the energy efficiency side, right? Other than this, in my past experience, I have managed funds which are climate financing for the energy efficiency projects. I've reviewed a program called FLCTD program, which was UNIDO's flagship program, which is Facility for Low Carbon Deployment, Technology Deployment Program. There, while I was reviewing that program, I did get a lot of insights that why the energy efficiency projects are not getting up to a level when it can go for financing, and what are the barriers. So maybe we can discuss that sometime. And also we have worked on clean development mechanism, erstwhile clean development mechanism market, where we develop projects, identify projects and develop projects in which are having energy efficiency as in like kind of emission reduction potential. And that was across the sector, be it a hotel sector project, be it in the FMCG, paper mill, in cement plant, everywhere. So that is another segment.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Manisha. I think one more question that I'd like you to probably elaborate a bit on is when we're talking financing in general, I think risk coverage and M&V are very important, more so for energy efficiency projects. Can you give us some examples about how this needs to be focused on?
De-risking is one of the most, I would say that critical for mobilizing any kind of fund. So if you see sometime, I'll take two examples from outside India and then come to India, that why it is happening or not happening. In Chile, there is a GCF fund which was 60 million funds, and they invested in the anchor equity, and therefore it encouraged a further 1.1 billion from the private sector to invest. So when we are saying that unlocking the funds or financing, moving from funding to financing, so a lot of private sector player needs to come into the picture. So it is not only the development banks will play a role, of course they will, but their investments will also encourage private sectors to come into the picture. So similarly, there is a European Development Bank projects in Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, which is on the African Energy Guarantee Facility. So what they did, there are different kind of risks. So they have given a coverage against the political risk to the private parties who invested in those projects, and also like whomsoever is maintaining the EU guideline, right, to for enter the project cycle. So they are giving that insurance to them. So in that way, they're encouraging the private sector to coming to that foray. In India, we have also seen that partial risk sharing facility programs are there, but it probably did not take up in the way it was expected. The reason could be many. One is the market, India market is very value sensitive. So while we are handling a fund, we have to be very mindful that the value that we are like imposing for de-risking of some components should be very proportionate. Any disproportionate de-risking value could actually make the funds to not to function. I mean, there are two aspects of any fund to get success. One is whether the fund structurally has some flaws. Even if the fund is structurally very good, sometimes we see that it is not getting success. It is not, there is no takers. The reason being, maybe there are administering issues which are related with the fund. There are capacity development needed to mobilize the funds. If the awareness on the capacity development is not there, there are many challenges will come while doing the fund. Another de-risking, instrument is insurance. So we have seen that the insurance that is as of now in place is all asset liability insurance, right? There is no, as such, scope liability insurance is not there. But if you, as also in the morning session, I was listening that, energy efficiency is known to all, but it should be out-of-the-box solutions. So if it is out-of-the-box solutions we are looking at from energy and efficiency perspective, then we'll have to also think about out-of-the-box solutions from financing perspective. So there should be some kind of risk sharing through this kind of introducing this kind of insurance where I think, development banks and even the government can play a big role to have it in terms of some, inputs, so that, the private sector will feel more comfortable, more, assured, even if, because this is an out-of-the-box idea. So even if that prototype fails, there is some kind of guarantee that, the time invested, because our industry will adopt that. So that partially should be covered somewhere. So that risk should be taken care of.
Thank you, Dr. Mukherjee. I think we are not having a lot of time, so I'll still ask another round of questions. But before we go to that, it might be useful to get any questions from the audience. And for that, we'll use the traditional way. You can raise your hand and the mic will come to you. And you could ask a question. Please introduce yourself and also mention who you would like to be answering your question, if you know.
Thank you very much. It's a very very interesting discussion I had. So one question that coming to my mind is that there are two aspects of achieving sustainable development. Is that one is that we are going for renewable energy. Second one is that achieving or having energy efficiency. Right now, from the funding perspective, I would like to know from because you have done is there any kind of competition do you feel, or there is a question you feel? My question directed to Dr. Manisha and Shamrat. Myself, Dr. Arijit Das from PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Did you get the question clearly?
Yes, if I get the question, it is about competition between renewable energy and energy efficiency. So I think there is no competition. I mean, as if you're doing it at a programmatic level, so there are elements into the program, and when you do it at a programmatic level, you also estimate. So you design the program looking at the projected estimates which each pillar will contribute. So which basically means that when the program has been designed, every pillar has been accounted for. So it's not like you design the program and you come to a figure and then you try to see what's the ratio. No, you don't do that. You do it the other way around. So yeah, so if you do a programmatic approach, I think that challenge will not be there.
Hi, am I audible? Yeah, hi. This is to Ms. Manisha. This is Ramneek from Habitat India. You spoke about out-of-the-box solutions. So my question is, what kind of out-of-the-box solutions are you looking at? Are you looking at AI and deep tech for built environments, energy efficiency? And if yes, what kind of technologies do you think can be scaled up for this important sector?
Thank you for your question. See, I'm not a technology expert, so I will not be able to comment on that. However, like there are, for example, there are Decarbonization Challenge Fund, which SIDBI has started, basically funded by World Bank. So there you will see that, there are many, they have recognized that there are many solutions which are scalable, out of the box, innovative. However, they're riskier because no industry has implemented that before. So there you need some kind of funds where SIDBI is coming into the picture and giving the funds. So it can be in any domain. For example, it will depend actually on which sector you are operating in, and depending on that, it can be also IoT related, I'm sure. But it will depend on the which sector you are operating, and if that practice is not business as usual in that sector, so there will be an innovation has been done, so it will come from that angle. So
Thank you.
Yes, I have a question. Yes, there are a lot of innovation.
Shruti, you could take that.
It depends, right? It's a program. Like, I think if you can programmatically create something like that, where you have solar as a service model, and it's happening. Like, people actually take roofs and they, provide the entire renewable energy component and everything. Similarly, for energy efficiency, there is an ESCO model that exists. So I think if the model can be created programmatically, like Samrat was saying that, institutional investors will be there to fund it. And I think we have been working with cities to sort of create these kind of programmatic models where one can look at pulling in of like energy efficiency, where it starts becoming attractive to investors, because the ticket sizes are small, right? So you need to have an institutional investor in the middle to sort of look at these programs to take off.
Okay, if there is any one question remaining, we could take that as the last question from the audience, and then we'll try to round up the panel.
This is Pradeep Chauhan from 2.0 Capital. So my question is to Mr. Hari Kumar sir. So sir, as you mentioned that, you provide funding at 2%, 4% rate of interest to the, for energy efficiency projects and all. So I just wanted to know what are the overall, timeline of those projects, and how do you get your money back? Is it like leasing kind of model, fixed DMI based, or is it a shared saving kind of model that you opted?
See, the project period we give is for 3 years, and it is a fixed DMI model. It is not a lease sharing model.
So I think great questions and answers. I think we can now move on to another round of questions from the panelists, and we'll try and wrap it up. I think we are not having a lot of time, but if we do, we'll see how we close this. So I think one question that I'd like to raise to you, Dr. Hari, is in terms of how you see the recency app that Kerala government has come up with. Do you see the conservation fund expanding its scope or operations? And if there are new instruments, you mentioned some of them, what are those instruments that you were thinking about? How are you planning to go ahead in terms of your operations going forward?
See, commenting or giving my observation to some of the points which came up in the panel discussion, I would say that, see, I am trained in energy efficiency by Padu when he was in World Bank in his MCAT program at National Productivity Council in 1992. So we are hearing about first fuel, low-hanging fruit of energy efficiency, easy to implement. I would little bit differ with this at this point of time. It is very difficult to implement energy efficiency. See, when easy and difficult is a relative thing, no? In this forum on energy efficiency itself, we had two questions which are revolving around renewables, storage, and solar. Before putting the hat of the director of Energy Management Center, I was the director of the state nodal agency of MNRE, where we promoted solar things. So there my job is to promote solar, not energy efficiency. Now when I come to energy efficiency, see, I feel, maybe pardon with me if I am not using my diplomatic tongue, I would say that renewable and solar, wind, etc. is a predatory program for energy efficiency. So the people who are sitting in this room have to do a lot of hard work if energy efficiency has to get implemented. For the last few years, I sit on the jury of the CII National Energy Efficiency Awards. There I feel that it is easy to go for open access, green procurement power to reduce your energy cost than go for doing an energy efficiency project. Or put rooftop solar, or put wind turbine in captive mode or open access. It is very easy. So we have to do a lot of hard work to implement energy efficiency. That is why we found that people are not able to give bank guarantee because their money gets locked in the bank. We thought that, okay, now we are coming out and another program, it is an interest subvention scheme. We are telling that you take loan from any bank. No, we don't restrict them. We do take any loan from any bank. We will give a 2% reduction in your interest rate. We will give as a grant. Now we believe in, we do not believe in free lunch. So suppose, and some panelists mentioned about out of box. See, we are thinking without box. So there is a problem with without box thinking also. We do not get partners along with us because maybe because we are thinking too non-conventional. Now my program, what I am thinking of now is that if somebody wants to invest in energy efficiency, we have a good case in Kerala that you give 100 million rupees to us for 6 years. For 6 years, okay. We will do 200 million worth project with that 100 million and repay that 100 million to you after 6 years. Either you can give as a no interest loan or a soft loan with 3 or 4% interest. Even you charge 3 or 4% interest, we will repay the principal, we will repay with interest of 3 or 4%, and we will do 200 million worth project in the ground. And Kerala has a very peculiar thing. We are in the deep south of this Indian peninsula, and because of our geographical disadvantage, we do not get opportunity to speak with my co-panelists because they do not have office in Chennai or Bangalore, no? Not even Cochin. So it is difficult to find partners. If we are not finding partners, again we have some 80 million Indian rupees with us. So we will be going to announce this interest subvention scheme for 2% reduction. You take loan from any bank, we give 2% rebate if you are a good repair for energy efficiency project. So that will be we will be announcing within another 2 months once I get the green signal from our Energy Conservation Fund Committee.
Sure, thank you. Well noted. We all need to work hard, and that's why we come together like this to share experiences and learn from each other. But noted definitely that we need to work hard if we are wanting to move ahead on energy efficiency. And I think well noted your invitation to partners to come and join hands to make sure that EMC can do more interesting work going forward. I would want one more question, if you could share a little bit advice for, there are other state governments who are running similar conservation funds, but they're not doing very well. So in terms of your learnings, what has worked and what probably did not work, what would be a few things that you would want to share in terms of operations and the way you do things?
See, many or most of the states have their renewable energy agency doing energy efficiency as a part-time job. And see, I cannot invite my minister to an air compressor replacement program to cut the ribbon. But I can invite my minister to cut the ribbon for a 25 kilowatt rooftop solar project, which is 10% of the total project cost of a 25 of the air compressor program. Therefore, when ADB, our friend, told about that electric vehicle program, see, I am inviting my Chief Minister. Honorable Chief Minister has agreed yesterday that he will come for inaugurating that 400 cargo bicycles which you are giving. We need to be a little bit, as my guru Padu mentioned, we need to be a little bit strategic. So I am running that program, I am launching that program in the Chief Minister's constituency in the northern part of Kerala. 2 districts we have selected. One is the Chief Minister's constituency in the northern part of Kerala, where he will be launching that program as a statewide launch. And we have selected the second district is our Honorable Electricity Minister's so that is that. And so what is your question? I forgot.
No, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more.
Yes. So for the other state agencies, it is very difficult because, as I told, they have a predatory program on renewable energy, which even the central government is pushing much. See, if you see the funding pattern for Bureau of Energy Efficiency and MNRE, you cannot compare. It is too little. So energy efficiency, we have to do a lot of hard work. And for financing scheme, I think we should make it very simple. Say, for example, ESCOs. When I am seeing this, hearing this out of box. See, without box, we are asking ESCOs to come to Kerala. So I heard in the last presentation that some ESCOs I am inviting them. You come to Kerala, you are taking loan at 12% interest rate from bank and doing this ESCO project. Now I am telling that I will give 4% interest rate loan to you, do the project in Kerala. And if you come and do the project in government building sector, because buildings consume 2/3 of the electricity in the state. If you come and do project in government building sector, my organization will act as a guarantee for you for getting the payment back. But I am not getting a ESCO's company. You should be very, my advice is that, I don't know what advice I should give because there is no standalone SDA in the country which is doing this energy efficiency program except Kerala and Andhra Pradesh, I think.
Great response, and I think ESCO representatives in the room, you should come and talk to Hari sir later post this session maybe. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your comments. And I think moving over to Shruti, one last question. Maybe if you can tell us, as part of the work that you do with cities, I think we were discussing this earlier, how do we convince decision makers to move beyond retrofits to look at greenfield projects, new developments, which are more than the L1 most cases, for committing investments in those kinds of projects? That's one, and maybe you can also add in a bit in terms of what do you see as opportunities for energy efficiency projects going forward, especially in your space, in the city space?
Yeah, it's tough to come after Mr. Hari, who's probably, sort of laid the land quite well, right? So it's, energy efficiency is an established business case in that sense, right? But it is not in that attractive in terms of sound bites or, and even when we work with cities, when we highlight to them that, even when you do their climate action plans, like government buildings, we will work, we outline that even if you take, like, for example, your own stock and look at an energy efficiency measures, you will save a lot more quickly than putting in renewable energy, if you consider the sort of the impact on greenhouse gas emissions. So I think, it's a lot about capacity building and being able to translate this into communication in a way where people are able to understand that there is this urgency to do energy efficiency and that it is critical, right? Now, obviously, there are mechanisms like policies, which, again, we've been talking about ECBC for, I don't know, for decades, right? And there is still, it's not coming in. But I really do think, and I think he brought up a really important point, Mr. Hari, was the lack of institutions at the state level that are really taking the lead on energy efficiency, right? We don't have those kind of champions that are driving this at the state level so that it can infiltrate into the ULBs and other mechanisms and become a part of sort of the policy of approvals and, ensuring that every other building that you're building is meeting a certain level of, criteria or is ECBC compliant, and what is sort of the, and, I think Samrat had also brought up the fact that, you have to sort of create that incentive or tax sort of, penalization mechanism, because otherwise it's never going to come into enforcement, right? And also kind of looking at the demand side measures that are there, how do you bring in, large utility companies to play a role? The private sector has a very significant role to play in this ecosystem in driving this.
Great, thank you. I'd move over to Samrat Reddy. I think we discussed a bit earlier, but maybe you can elaborate how you see the role of state-level entities in structuring such programs and playing an important role in asking for financing and being involved in energy efficiency projects going forward. Maybe you have past experiences that you can elaborate on as you answer this. And also, I think you mentioned that going forward, you'd look at financing and energy efficiency, but if there are any other opportunities that you'd like to highlight as a final point, would be good to hear.
So I think, on the cities, there is a Niti Aayog program, which is 100 cities and looking at cities for growth. Of course, that's a different division within ADB, and I do not know much, but I do not know how much of energy efficiency is part of that. But I know that's a program which catches the attention of even at the political spectrum. In fact, our country director recently met the Honorable Chief Minister of Maharashtra, and the Cities for Growth was, of all the big shot infrastructure things which we proposed to the state, the 100 Cities for Growth was something which caught the eye of the Honorable Chief Minister. So I think there are people in the system who realize it. So, I'm sure that it is just that you need to get the right dialogue in place. Now, I think a lot of people ask us, business models and, financing and all that. But I think one thing what most people fundamentally miss is that, to our understanding, we may be wrong, but to our understanding, I think you need to also look at energy efficiency from the consumer segment. You cannot just generalize the fact that decarbonization in industry and energy efficiency being a lever for that is equal to a district cooling system, because both have different needs. Now, at least from an industry segment, and that is what we have also understood, is all these measures, now whether it is renewable energy, energy efficiency, or we are talking about new technologies getting into industrial processes, there will be an increase in cost. Now, I'm told that if you do the green steel mission, there is going to be an increase in cost in green steel. So what is also important is that, how do you create the demand? So energy efficiency is not about just trying to say that I want to finance schemes and programs. It is also about trying to create that enabling framework where whatever incremental cost, because I know energy efficiency will save some cost, but because of the technology and all that, I'm sure it's not an even balance. It's not always an even balance out. So there will be an increase in cost. So how do you create the framework for that? So if you look at the green taxonomy which came out, and if you look at the way they were trying to promote it, this extensively talked about green procurement, public procurement, green public procurement and systems. And so in fact, we gave, ADB has an extensive program on green procurement, and we gave our comments to that. But in fact, what we're also trying to do now is, within the procurement which happens under ADB's large infra loans, to the extent possible, without trying to significantly tinker with the cost of the project, we are also insisting on that there has to be green procurement. Now let's say, if you're trying to do a civil work, we are trying to say that, look, your bidding documents should say that there has to be explicit mention of use of green materials. Now, that is also a way to promote it. So it is not just about giving money all the time. It is also about trying to use this institutional framework. And I wouldn't, try to say that we are we will be the best advocates for institutional framework, because, if you look at ADB off the record, it's just two people who is trying to look at 6 countries and trying to promote energy efficiency. That is beside our regular job of trying to promote the large infrastructure program. So even we are not strong institutionally. But I think what's really driving us is when we engage with the government, I think the very clear understanding is that the government understands that energy efficiency is also in the context of, at least from an industrial perspective, is also in the context of industrial competitiveness. Yes, they agree to the fact that this is going to increase in cost, but you are going to push for it. And if someone is not willing to do it, they are even, going to the extent to say that there have to be penalties. So I think, I'm sure that this is a reasonable push the government would make, and I'm sure multiple line ministries may do all this, to create that framework that energy actually starts now happening, and we actually are able to finance it through the private sector. Thank you.
Thanks. Just one line answer from Dr. Manisha. Do you see any opportunities that are emerging going forward, looking at energy efficiency? We are short on time, so yeah.
I do believe there will be a credit guarantee kind of, arrangement from government side. Maybe sometime they may introduce to enhance the energy efficiency, especially when there is a there is a requirement of 10 trillion in space of renewable energy and energy efficiency as far as the decarbonization is concerned and our journey to net zero is concerned. But at the same time, I do also believe that private sector needs to come up in a very big way. Otherwise, these all investments and everything will not happen. So rather than opportunity, I would also like to just mention one point here. In solar, there are many policy support that has been provided, but those policy support are not seen in energy efficiency to that extent. For example, I think it's 2015, so please correct me if I'm wrong, when B has come up with a study and they have submitted to Ministry of Finance for a recommendation for accelerated depreciation model should be also applied to other energy technologies and energy efficient technologies also, which did not get granted. So those kind of push from government we need in order to make this happen. So it's a lot of opportunity for both the private sector and even for the ESCOs. But however, there are some policy level intervention that we may need at this point of time.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Manisha, and thank you to all the panelists. I think we had very interesting insights from all of you, and this was a very interesting session. I think a point that stays with me, and I'm sure with all the audience, is the fact that unlocking the vault is not going to be easy. It's smart and hard work that we will have to do to make sure that energy efficiency becomes mainstreamed and we start to see results of this in a really large scale across the country. There is enough opportunity, appetite, but we need to work to make sure that this happens on ground. But I want to thank you all for the session, and hopefully these conversations continue and we are able to maybe take ahead some of the conversations as we step off the stage with the audience. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you so much for an enlightening session. I would now request the panelists to please come forward for a group photo. A little bit forward. I now request Dr. Bhaskar Natranjan to please present a token of appreciation. Can we please have a round of applause for our panelists? Thank you. We will now break for lunch. Please be back by 2:30 for our next session. Thank you.